Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of this Thursday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Tony Perkins, Family Research Council, now coming out vocally in support of Phil Robertson. You've got Bobby Jindal, the governor of Louisiana. He's come out in support of Phil Robertson. He says, look, you got a messed up situation when Miley Cyrus gets a laugh. Everybody likes her. Everybody loves her. Everybody laughs at her. She's a star. She's a celebrity. It's messed up when she gets a laugh and Phil Robertson gets suspended. Bobby Jindal said, look, I can remember the time when the TV networks actually believed in the First Amendment. I've got a piece here, an opinion piece on Time Magazine by Brandon Ambrosino. I think that's how you say his name, Brandon Ambrosino. He's a homosexual. He's an out, loud, and proud homosexual. And he says, look, he's criticizing the gay lobby for landing on Phil Robertson like a falling safe. He says, look, this is revealing more about our bigotry than his. He says toward the end of his piece, I'm reminded of something Bill Maher said during the height of the Paula Deen controversy. Do we always have to make people go away? I think the question applies in this situation too. Why is talking about homosexual activists, why is our go-to political strategy for beating our opponents to silence them? Why do we dismiss rather than engage them? Well, I'll tell you why they don't do that. They'll lose the debate. They will lose the discussion. They've got nothing on their side. We can win the debate. You start talking about the homosexual behavior just from an objective, rational standpoint, from the standpoint of research, from the standpoint of history, from the standpoint of the Centers for Disease Control, from the standpoint of the Food and Drug Administration, from the standpoint of social research on gay parenting, from the standpoint of the impact of homosexual behavior on people that practice it, they'd be flattened. I mean, that's a losing effort. That's why they have to silence us, because they cannot defeat us in an honest discussion. So I've got the answer to his question. Why do we dismiss rather than engage them? Well, because you lose every engagement, Brandon. It's not rocket surgery here. That's why you got to silence us, because you can't out-discuss us. You can't out-debate us, because facts, history, research, logic, all of that is on our side. He goes on, one of the biggest pop culture icons of today just took center stage to, quote, educate us, end quote, about sexuality. I see this as an opportunity to further the discussion, to challenge his limited understanding of human desire, to engage with him and his rather sizable audience, most of whom, by the way, probably share his views, and to rise above the endless sea of tweet hate. Notice he calls it hate. Here's a gay activist says, look, what these people are doing to this guy is hate. The real victim of hate speech here is Phil Robertson. All of this tweet hate, demonizing him. So let's rise above it to move our LGBT conversations to where they need to go. G.K. Chesterton said that bigotry is an incapacity to conceive seriously the alternative to a proposition. If he is right, and he usually is, then I wonder if the Duck Dynasty fiasco says more about our bigotry than Phil's. That's an absolutely great statement. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Elizabeth in Anna, Texas. Elizabeth, thank you for calling Focal Point. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
Thanks for taking the call.
You bet.
I just want to say that I'm thankful for the Robinsons and thankful for even this situation coming about, because I can't help to think what perfect timing as it just separates the true conservatives from everyone else and makes people even question, the media and even further. And I can't help thinking how God will even use this in the future in the next election.
Now, what do you think about the possible impact on the next election? Spell that out for me a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's such a big group of false conservatives that call themselves Republicans, but clearly are not voting. Anyway.
And this to kind of flush them out, you think, where they got to kind of take a stand?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
well, that's good.
And more of this type of situation, these things that reveal the real essence of where our country is going.
Yeah. Well, and
It'll
that's a
get
good
people
point.
out.
And that's a good point because the number of Republican political figures that have spoken out on this is a very small number. Bobby Jindal, but people kind of expected him to do that because they're in Louisiana, they're constituents. So, I mean, it's his values, but you sort of expect him to weigh in on this. Ted Cruz has called this attack on him referring to it as thought police. He's saying, look, this is the mainstream media behaving as the thought police. So Ted Cruz is publicly criticizing what A&E has done. But you're right. There haven't been a lot of other voices, conservative voices, speaking out against this.
There's a lot of wolves in sheep clothing, I'll just tell you.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate that observation, Elizabeth. We really do need to flush out the people that claim to be conservative and are not. We need to know who these people are before we go to the ballot box. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Let's go to Francis in Columbus, Ohio. Francis, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I support Phil Robinson totally. I don't watch his show, but I do like the fact that he stood up very much.
Amen to that.
I went online and signed a petition, for his regarding his dismissal.
Yeah.
But that does show you they still need the family because they only fired him. So they're still looking to make money off of him. So this is obviously a money-making opportunity for A&E.
Well, and I think you've got a good point there that they didn't suspend the whole show. I just don't think they were thinking very far ahead here. I think they just capitulated to this enormous pressure, didn't realize what they had done to their own franchise when they fired him. And maybe they thought we can carve him off the herd, and maybe they will. Maybe they'll be able to carve him away from the family. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the family's going to stick together, and A&E is toast. But I think they thought maybe they could carve him away from the herd and still keep the franchise. Ain't going to happen.
One more thing, and it's kind of off topic, but I was on Yahoo Mail earlier this morning, and one of the headlines was, North Dakota says man in same-sex marriage may wed woman too. Yeah,
that's crazy, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, and that's the deal. What she's talking about is the Attorney General in North Dakota, and Francis is exactly right. This is just bizarre, but the Attorney General in North Dakota said, look, if a man goes off to, let's say, Massachusetts and gets married, and so he's already married. He's married in the eyes of the state of He comes to North Dakota. He can marry a woman if he wants, and we got no problem with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty twisted around, but that just shows you where this thing goes.
Right, and it's like everybody's been saying. You grant the so-called same-sex marriage, it's just going to start going downhill.
Yeah, once you break that threshold, there's no place to stop.
Right.
And I'll make one other observation on this topic, and I appreciate the call. Thank you for that, Francis. I appreciate it. Speaking of no place to stop, a lot of people don't know this, but we've had extensive conversations here, and you may want to protect tender ears here for the next 60 seconds here if you got them in earshot. We're not going to say anything offensive, but it might raise some questions you don't want to talk about. But, one of the points that we have made, I've made this from the beginning, once you break the threshold of man-woman marriage, there's no place to stop. We saw that with homosexual marriage. We saw it last Friday with polygamy. And I said the next shoe to fall is either going to be incest or it's going to be pedophilia. And people are saying, pedophilia, you're crazy. Nobody's talking about that. That's not going to happen. Well, yesterday, a court in Italy, believe it or not, a court in Italy threw out charges against a 60-year-old man who was having a sexual affair with an 11-year-old girl, and the judge threw it out because he said this 11-year-old girl had a romantic relationship with this 60-year-old man. In other words, the judge said, look, she may be 11 years old, but she is old enough to consent. So this judge, it's in Italy, but it's coming here. This judge legalized pedophilia. I told you it was coming, and it already has. Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be right back to talk about Gospel for Asia, the Christmas Critter Campaign. Stay with us.